I'm going to start with Anthony, and he's going to talk about all of the other pieces, about anything I left out about his introduction, and what he's looking for and how his transition's going.
All right, well, good afternoon. As Karen said, I did 22 years in the Navy. We retired July 1st of 2012. 10 of those years were as an enlisted sailor, and then 12 years were as a naval officer. All 22 years were spent in explosive ordnance disposal, EOD, and I was very, very fortunate to have such a great career, great job. We got to dive, blow stuff up, and then, of course, when Iraq and Afghanistan happened, business was really good with IEDs. Right now, I'm looking. I just got home probably a couple months ago. I spent 14 months in the military healthcare system for a couple of TBIs. So right now, I got home in the end of April. So I've been kind of going a full court press on the job search. But also, I'm kind of reacquainting myself with, being at home. I haven't been home for 14 months, so it's kind of getting used to the routine. The kids going to school, kids doing track, kids doing swim team, all that stuff. So my daughter graduated high school last week, and then my son, they had a ceremony for him finishing middle school a couple of days ago. So I've been looking. I did a couple tours as an operations officer, so I figured that I would, just kind of sell myself as being an operations manager, and I'd be able to get picked up right away. Well, that's kind of grown from operations management to project management. I've looked in human resources. I've been looking into the retail industry. Of course, government contracting, I've been looking at them. I've been looking at the GS, the government service positions. I really, my search has been pretty broad. And, I've had a couple of nibbles, but nothing really hard. The biggest thing for me that I've had to learn, kind of transitioning from, Navy to civilianhood, is that nothing happens fast out here. You got really, you got to have. At least for me, I had to tell myself that I have to be patient. Because being in the military, used to things coming your way, or instant gratification, and that doesn't seem to work that way out here. Maybe I'll find out that it's wrong. I hope. So, but anyway, that's my spiel. Stan, thanks for inviting me.
Thanks, Anthony.
My name is Kenya, and I'm originally from South Carolina. To add to my, what do you call it?
Resume skills.
My resume skills, I'm working currently with project management on my certification. I've been a part of the PMI for, about close to 3 years now. I originally moved up to the Baltimore, Maryland area in around 2010. So I became part of the Baltimore chapter and subsequently the Midlands, South Carolina chapter. So I'm in that area or that field of project management. One of the things that I've learned since being in the military, I was a part of the civil engineering squadron. So I've done that for a little less than 10 years. I was in the Air Force. And being in the military, I guess we have our ideas that once you leave the military, your skills and all that you've learned is going to transition outside of the military, and you're going to get a job very soon, and your expectations are pretty high when you transition to the civilian world. But unfortunately, it did not work that way for me, especially since I transitioned to the military, from the military with having been in a motor vehicle accident. And so transitioning for me ended up being abrupt, if you will. I had a choice. My commander asked me if I wanted to stay. I was in a motor vehicle accident. Let me back up. Probably almost a year before I actually transitioned. And so he asked me, being in the civil engineering squadron, my job was deploying every 15 months to, I guess it was Saudi Arabia at the time. And being that I had to go through a major physical rehabilitation program, I decided that it was better for me and my squadron if I lessened the load of having to depend on them. And my daughter was 3 years old at the time, if I just transitioned out of the military. So I did. And when I did, one of the things that I wanted, I guess, employers to realize is when you decide to work with wounded warriors, you have to remember that they're wounded warriors. So transitioning to the civilian world for me, I guess they expected me, and I expected myself, to hit the ground running. And so my first job from the military was with doing engineering, because that's what I did in the military. Well, I didn't realize, it didn't hit me, and you probably got this from Don's speech, it didn't hit me. I guess I had to remember sooner, but it didn't hit me that let me pause. I had traumatic brain injury. It didn't hit me that I had traumatic brain injury. And so I took a job in engineering, which relied on my brain. Again, I had to remember that I had traumatic brain injury. Ultimately, I was fired because I didn't hit the ground running. So that was my first experience. And I did not finish my rehabilitation, which is another thing I should say. I did a year of rehabilitation, but I still had to go through ultimately 2 more years of rehabilitation. That was just physical rehabilitation that I completed before leaving the military, but I did not consider the mental rehabilitation and so many other forms of rehabilitation that needed to happen because of my traumatic brain injury. Another thing that employers probably should realize, you are hiring wounded warriors. Now, most wounded warriors have injuries that you cannot see, like myself. I had a scratch on my big toe. That was most of the extent of, not most of, the extent of my injuries. So I won't keep you all there. To fast forward, my experiences with civilians was, not just civilians, I guess my experience with being employed was basically communication. The biggest thing with communication is just expressing to my employees, my employers, what it is that I want to do. Expressing it in my resume. Connecting with my employers continuously, over and over, not just from the time that I'm hired, but from the time that I'm hired, 3 months after I'm hired, 6 months after I'm hired, continual communication, not just with my supervisor, but my supervisor's supervisors, the people that I work with. How can I continue to communicate what it is you're expecting from me, what it is I'm expecting from you, so that the process just doesn't start from the time that it's just like a marriage. That's the best way for me to explain it, and actually that's what I wrote down.
Thank you very much. Great story. Douglas.
Good afternoon. Again, my name is Douglas Alexander. I left active service in the Marine Corps this past September of last year, and just to follow on what they were saying, I've always told myself, especially when I realized my active duty time was ending, that I had skills that I could get out there and pretty much put to use. And to my realization, here we are 6-7 months later, and I'm still seeking employment. But I have come to the realization that it's not so much that the skills that I have or anything that they're not being looked for. It's just that I have not ran across that right situation. I feel like those actors, when they use the phrase, they've been typecast. I'm an attorney, so people see my resume and immediately assume legal. And there are very few legal positions out there when you're sort of doing the job search thing. But I spent my last 8 years at the headquarters level, at the department level, doing policy. So I'm a policy guy. I write policy, I interpret policy, and I pretty much, my job for the Marine Corps was to implement policy and figure out how the way to make this possible, work in the Marine Corps and ultimately at the Department of the Navy. So that's what I am into. At my interest now is something on the policy side of the house, whether it's federal, whether it's contract, really doesn't matter. The months have taught me I had to expand my options because originally I came out focusing on the GS side of the house, and then sequestration, all that nonsense started. Then here we are 8 months later, whatever it may be, and I realize now I need to expand that opportunity. So the contractor world has opened up as far as at least I'm looking down that lane. My job experience so far, I do the job fairs. I met Billy at one of the Marine Corps mandatory musters, and I learned about what he does. It's all been good. I will not sit here and say as someone looking for a job that you guys are not doing what you can, because I realize there's a lot of us looking for employment, and a lot of qualified people out there looking for employment. It is on me to put myself either at the top of the list or not. I applaud you for at least making an attempt. I mean, when you go to the job fairs and you see employers there, that's a good thing. But I will add this, when you're looking for employment, to hear someone say at a job, at a table that, you know, we're currently not hiring, you know, the first thing to come to my mind is, then why are you here? Of course, we followed up and say, yeah, we're looking for potential people that we can put in a pool that, you know, if something pops up and your resume is highlighted, I can appreciate that. But to start a conversation off by saying we're not hiring, it sort of puts us in a whole different mindset as someone seeking employment. And just to also follow up what was said by the presenter, the gentleman here was earlier about having someone who's, if you have an employee who has that military experience, send them to the military job fairs. Because it sort of put us at ease when we are talking to someone who can appreciate what we're going through. It is a transition, it's not an easy one. And the longer you stay in the Marine, I'm not gonna say the Marine Corps, the longer you stay in the military, it's even harder to make that transition because we are typecast as far as what you think we can do or what you think we can provide to you. I will say this, all of the military individuals who leave the military and wind up working for you, the discipline will be there. We don't back down from stressful situations. We know how to multitask. Those things are second nature to us, so it's not something that is gonna cause us to fall into a shell when you have some high priority matter or issue or job that sort of comes out at 0 dark 30, and now all of a sudden the days are gonna be long, and you're not gonna have an employee complaining about that, because that's what we do. But again, thank you for the opportunity. Billy, thanks for inviting me, and enjoy your lunch.
Yeah, and he forgot to mention one thing, and all of the veterans, I mean, they're so humble. I mean, he still calls me Mr. Wright. I'm calling him Douglas, you know, and I've been working with him in Kenya. Actually, she's working with Lorene Sutton, one of our regional veteran employment coordinators on my team. But yeah, it's just, you know, she came up and I just want to introduce you know, it's just those things that you just can't, money can't buy. Money can't buy. So, you know, gosh, I just hope something happens good today. And one of these veterans on the panel has a life-altering experience. If I got hired, anybody can get hired. What I went through and my challenges, you know, it's all the same, you know, stay encouraged, keep risk, because you're just one person away.
Yep. That next person you talk.
Great.
Just need
Okay,
one yes.
Brian.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I'd like to thank my #1 voc rehab specialist, employer, Mr. Tommy Bates, for having us, for giving me the opportunity, and also through Bob Goodman, who I work part-time consulting with the Get It Done program. When I saw the email come out, I was like, wow, this is gonna be good, you know. So I said, I'm always open to anything and every opportunity. You know, I leave nothing unturned. Let's take a look at it. Again, just like Mr. Wright said, all it takes is one yes sometimes. It just takes one yes to get where you need to be. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody, the Eastern SEALs, for having us out today. And it's just a pleasure to be here. Let me just step back a little bit. Originally was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. And as I came up as a young boy coming up, my dad used to take me to the air show every year. It was a yearly thing. The Blue Angels, the Thunderbirds, we alternated in Cleveland every year. And still to this day, until the recent grounding, I always went back every year, Labor Day, where they always flew. you know, as a tribute to my dad who passed away in '07. So I've always had a love for aviation. I've always had a passion for airplanes. Once I graduated high school, I enlisted in the United States Air Force. I tried to get the job, anything involved with aviation. The closest I could get was a fuel specialist. I said, well, I worked on the flight line, refueling aircraft. I was stationed at Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota. I spent about 2 years out there refueling B-52s and KC-135s. So I said, wow, you know what? As I was young in the military and coming up, I was fortunate to be around some people that were like a mentor, a coach to me, to say, hey, you can take the next step. If you want to do this, you can do that. Go see your, say guidance counselor, I'm thinking school, but we called them career planner, correct. And you can do this and that and the other. So I was fortunate to do that, put in my paperwork. I cross-trained in the aircraft loadmaster, where I was awarded a C-130 slot. So I got all of that squared away. Once I went to my initial training, I did all of that. I spent a lot of time at Little Rock Air Force Base. Went to C-130 school for 6 months, and I was on my way. And it was just, I couldn't believe that I really was awarded the job, you know. It was quite an experience, it really was. I started out in Abilene, Texas, was my first duty station. I stayed there for 12 months. And then my last 8 years took me overseas to where I spent a lot of time in Clark Air Base in Japan before Clark Air Base closed down when the Mount Pinatubo erupted. The Lord would bless me, my family, everybody in the squadron as a whole, because once we make the transition to Japan at Yokota Air Base, 6 months later, well, no, I'll take that back. 3 months after that, Mount Pinatubo blew up. Clark Air Base was closed, so it was just kind of a blessing in disguise. The whole city was pretty much destroyed with the amount of ash that spewed out of Mount Pinatubo, a volcano that slept for 600 years before it blew up, and it just changed everybody's life over there. So I transitioned on from that, moved on to Japan. I flew around Southeast Asia for 8 years. I practically went around Southeast Asia 3 times, pretty much. I've been into some spots there that some people couldn't possibly fathom, probably. You know, I've been in some situations where I couldn't believe, and it still get me kind of choked up, flying at over 300 feet above the ground at night at over 300 miles an hour. It's kind of tricky.
Wow.
Because a single power line could bring that aircraft down. You just don't know. You just don't know. But I moved on from that. I transitioned. I was medically discharged in '91, and as Douglas said here, I didn't know where my life was going to be after that, after 10 years of military time. So had to get my wits about myself. It's very difficult. It's hard. It really was hard, you know, to make the transition, but I did it. I was fortunate enough to be in a spot where I got hired on with FedEx Express in '93. I'm still employed with them. This is going on my 21st year. I'm based out of Dulles Airport, so I perform, again, working around aircraft. All type of duties from ramp agent, weight and balance. I've driven tractor trailer. I still hold a commercial license for that. I've done dispatch duties. I've scheduled for over 45 drivers on a shift. We do a little bit of everything. I've done everything except fly the plane, pretty much. You know what I mean? So, but it's a good company. It's a really good company. I'm very fortunate to be there. They've got their ups and downs like everybody else, like every other company out here. There's nothing perfect. I'm just so appreciative to be there. But on the same token, I feel like, you know, I've kind of mastered what I've done there in almost 21 years, so I'm ready for the next phase, you know. So all I need, from the famous words of my wife, is a chance. That's all I need is a chance. My background shows that, hey, I'm dedicated to what I do. I'm in it for the long haul. I've had 2 jobs in my life. Once I left, well, I threw paper out. You know, but I threw paper out. So once I left high school, I went to the military. I've left there, and I've worked pretty much here at FedEx. So in almost 30 years, I've done 2 jobs. So that shows my commitment. That shows my dedication to what I do. You know, I've been fortunate not to be a job hopper because I've always enjoyed what I've done, and I'm ready to bring my talents to someone's team. I can definitely do that. I can help you. There's no doubt about that. So I really thank everyone again for giving me the opportunity to be here today, and I wish everybody luck in their careers and their job searches, taking care of your families and whatnot. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Bob Wright?
I really am, I guess, last and least.
No,
No,
not at
I-
all.
If you let me finish, you'll understand how I mean that. I'm 67 years old, and when I came back from Vietnam, having been in the thick of the war, the word veteran was a dirty word, a four-letter word, okay? And so it took me 40 years to realize that the Veterans Administration was there to help us and support us. And I was very, very successful in life, having a beautiful family. I started from fixing sidewalks, cracks in the sidewalks for the Postal Service. I built a $40 million company in 10 years, 65 employees. The one mistake I made was trusting my partner. But my reputation when I left was still intact, the White Construction Group. So to this day, I'm proud to have accomplished that. Never thought that at 65 I would be looking for work. But fortunately, and I want to say this about Tommy Rice Bates, who's here from the VRE. You've heard. He thinks that he's her favorite. I am. And I want to get that straight right now. I did graduate from Get It Done Consulting, Bob Goodman, in front of him. Get off me. He has no respect for older people. But it's interesting. You're going to remember this, I promise you. It's interesting, you know, we hear about mentor all the time, and we hear about PTSD, and we hear about the VA. You know, they're all very real. I'm a product of that. Had it not been for Tommy seeing in me what I didn't see in myself, getting me into the program with Get It Done Consulting, I wouldn't be here. The only reason I came today, still looking for, and I want to make this point, at 67, for me to say to any human that I'm looking for a job is a lie. I don't need a job. I've employed myself and made millions of dollars. I'm looking for an opportunity to help disabled veterans who have suffered immensely in some small way to help themselves. So you can keep your jobs, okay, in the sense that, you know, for me to think that I would go out today and work 9 to 5 is ludicrous, because my disabilities won't allow me to do that.
Yeah.
And it took me 40 years to even admit that I was severely disabled in a number of ways. It took a psychiatrist to convince me that I was 70%. It took me 45 years to get my check that helps pay my mortgage today. 45 years.
Yeah.
So let me conclude with one point. And first I want to applaud everyone here. And you can call me Pop. I've earned that right. My daughter's getting ready to graduate, granddaughter's getting ready to graduate from Wellesley next year. My son teaches Obama's kids. So for me to say I'm looking for a job, it sounds crazy, doesn't it? But if there's an opportunity, and the VRE is helping me right now, Tommy, to find a position where I can help veterans, in and of itself, that's my reward. So for anybody out here who thinks that you're too old or incompetent, you know, don't lie to yourself. You know, admit what your shortcomings are, look yourself in the mirror, and then stop feeling sorry for yourself and what you don't have. You know, I was reading his credentials, and I felt so ashamed all of a sudden that, you know, I didn't get a PhD. That's what, when I was in college, I wanted to do. But I do have a PhD. It's a PhD in humanity. It's in loving other people and sharing and helping others. Because at the end of the day, when they close your casket, they're not going to put your diploma in it with you. So thank you so much. I apologize if I've overextended my welcome. I am Tommy's favorite. And listen to this. Veteran, finally, to me, at 67, is a word that it's not done. I'm proud of it.
Sorry. So couple things. First of all, I know that I have the best job at Northrop Grumman working with the Wounded Warriors. I just know it every day. And I had the best job. Thank you so much for having me moderate this wonderful panel. Thank you.
Outstanding panel.
I had the, yeah. So, some things I heard, oh, do we have any questions? Yes, sir.
Hi, John Stevenson with the Maryland National Guard. A lot of focus that we have in the media now is about PTSD. PTSD, that's all we hear about. And just listening to the panel, and from my own experiences too, something that we don't do as a nation is that we don't recognize that well, I guess we all can agree that if you're a veteran, if you're a service member, your life's been hard, you've had challenges, and you stepped up and done it. And it seems like the focus has been, oh, well, now there's something wrong with you. But there's something that I think all of us experience, and that is growth. And it may be post-traumatic growth, which is really the opposite of PTSD, and that is a clinical diagnosis that they can grow from their experiences. And that's something that I think the panel has probably brought out, and I see some heads nod maybe, that you really grow from these experiences. And I've reached out to a lot of companies. I talked to a district manager from Walmart, and I said, why would Fortune 500 company, the #1 Fortune 500 company, give away 100,000 jobs? And they said, well, we want to thank our veterans. So you're not going to be #1 for very long. You're doing it because these people's experience brings so much to the table to be employees. And then the light bulb went off, and he goes, you're right. He says, you're right, that's what we should be doing. So I guess get a feedback from the panel on those thoughts about, hey, a lot of focus is on, post-traumatic stress, but what about growth? And I think all of us who've been in the military know that we've grown from that experience and have a lot to offer. And that's the kind of, I think, the message we want to give out to employers. Any thoughts?
I would say, I will agree, and that was sort of what I was alluding to when you talk about what do you bring to the table as a veteran, is that stress. Well, again, I mean, we can deal with that because you grow from those difficult times you go through, whether it's surviving that 12 weeks of boot camp, and as a 21-year-old man, you're crying in your rack at night wondering, what did you do by signing up for this? But 20 years or 18 years later, you realize you're not your mother's little boy anymore. You're someone's husband, your father, and more importantly, you're a Marine or you're a military veteran, a very small population that has gone through some things, and a lot of things in recent history, whether it's Iraq, whether it's Afghanistan, and places that we don't know about. All those folks bring leadership to the table. Leadership is very important as an employer. I'm sure you want that. You want that individual you can depend on. And accountability. We're not afraid of accountability. And that's a big thing. I mean, we will raise our hand when we mess up, and we will correct it. Because that's what we do. That's what we've grown up. That's what we learned to do. So the growth thing, yes, we grow from what we have experienced, and the military gives you an opportunity to learn very quickly. And then as you stay in the military, you become a better person. And ultimately, you become a leader, and that's what you're looking for, I hope.
One, I hope all of you brought your resumes. So employers, please ask for the resumes. We also have a group of resumes out there from our Veteran Staffing Network and our other programs. And that's what we're here for today. It's a network out. Because somebody told me the opposite of networking is not working.
Not working.
So we have to continually network out. And it's not just about the individual you're talking to right now. It may be they have somebody else who may be able to fit the position you're looking for. So I really hope, employers, you will take the time to meet with them and also find some great resumes which we brought.
Absolutely.
Can I make one
Yes,
comment?
John.
So, I think I think you brought up a great point, Carl. One thing that I would love to see in everybody's resume that comes out, you talk about change management, resilience. I mean, when I was a business owner, I'm on a roller coaster every day. I mean, I go up, I go down, I go up. I need people that are adaptable, have change. And you know what? And I don't see that in anyone's resume, right? You get plucked from your house, you leave your family, you drop behind enemy lines. You can take the story wherever you want to go with it. and you adapt and you make things happen. Then you come back and you work in the barracks and you do all those day-to-day duties, right? So your ability to adapt and change and morph yourself into whatever you need to be to make the mission work, that's a key ingredient that I think I never see in anyone's resume. And boy, I'll tell you what, as a business owner, Stacy, right? I mean, wouldn't that be something that would be extremely valuable to a business owner? So I make that as a recommendation only.
Sure, absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
That was one of the things that I was talking to Karen about. A lot of times, from the military side, we don't really know how to express, which was my point on communication. We don't really know how to express a lot of the things that business owners are asking for or even need. So one of the things that I was recommending, and I probably didn't say it when I was giving my speech, is if you have a resume from a veteran, a lot of times I would recommend get them in your faces, because our resumes never say all of the things that we've done and the experiences we've had.
Right.
And that was something that I wanted to add to what Don was saying, or I can't remember, Miss Lisa was saying as well, as it pertains to the differences between enlisted and officers. Some of the differences in numbers and as it pertains to the MOS and the AFSC, because I was in the Air Force, is the differences can go as far as some of the job descriptions does not cover all of the things that the enlisted does, because we have a lot of additional duties that is not explained in our job descriptions. We do a lot of extra things that are not even in our resumes, so you would never hear of some of those skills in our resume. So even in my resume per se, I cannot ever express all of the things that I've done. So if you see resumes from enlisted people and you think they may even just a little bit qualify for what you're looking for, I would recommend if you can get the veteran in your face and tell them what you're looking for. I promise, like, a lot of us are up here, you're saying things and you see us shaking our head. We've done it.
I just want to add something real
Yep.
fast. What I'm finding out is I urge the employers, just look at the experience sometimes versus just the education. Okay, have you done this? Have you done that? You know what? When I go back and look, and like Kenya just said, we have a lot of duties. You can't fill up this resume with everything that we've done. You know what I'm saying? You just can't do it. So, and you got to figure these people are trainable. They're trainable. We're disciplined, and we're ready to go to work. You know, so just look. Don't just focus in on. Take an extra few seconds and say, well, you know what? That may be a good candidate, but if they don't have these couple of words on there that I'm looking for, I'm gonna discard that one. But you may just let a good candidate go by the wayside. So just kind of do that. Kind of look at that.
Especially if you're looking for a 2-page resume.
Right.
Okay, we need to wrap up.
Yeah.
So let me a couple of points that I want takeaways for the employers, is you heard them all talk. And I think, to Kenya's point, oftentimes we just see a piece of paper and we don't see a person and we don't see what they've done. Veterans should, they do a lot more than is on this piece of paper. So take the time and figure out a way in your organization where you can really get into the weeds. And Anthony is I'm working with Anthony in our Operation Impact program, and I'll be working with all of the rest of the people too. But get to know them and find out ways, get creative for placements. One idea that I'm pushing at Northrop Grumman is we struggle with our wounded warriors having to have doctor's appointments. That's always a concern of our hiring managers. Well, they're going to be gone for doctor's appointments. Okay, yeah, they're wounded warriors. Okay. Disabled veterans, think about creating job shares. Take one position, hire 2 veterans, sharing the job. There you go. Be creative and think about those things. So I thank them again for